Okay, but hear me out. If God really is all-powerful, and if God's actually Jesus at the same time, Kai continued my train of thought, he obviously knew a bit of too about Christianity, even though he wasn't Christian himself. After all, Easter holidays were called Easter holidays. Why didn't he fight back when the people back then literally nailed him to a cross and executed him? I took a moment to think about what Kai just said. Maybe he wanted to show that he wouldn't use his powers to punish or hurt people because he still cares about them. He creates new life from desperation. Oh, that's why Jesus came back to life on the third day after he died. You could even technically say that we have Christmas to celebrate both Jesus' birth and his death. Well, Anna, someone broke into our conversation and suddenly my smirking dad was standing next to us. Seems like I can just leave the sermons to you next time around. He looked at our baskets and said contentedly, "Those look pretty well filled already. Are you going to help me and Janine count?" He didn't wait for us to answer and took Kai and Louise's baskets that they'd already been holding out to him and turned back into the church, apparently just expecting me to follow him. And I would have, if I could have just stopped staring at the one note that laid on the top layer of my basket. Chapter 16, in which we discover our first solid trace. It wasn't a €5 note like most of the others. No, it was a €50 note. What made it stand out from every other €50 note I had ever seen was that one of the zeros had been colored red with a felt tip pen. "What's up, Anna?" asked Kai and Louise. "Here, look! The thief, our thief, left this note. That's one of the notes he stole from the parsonage." I quickly filled them in what my dad had told me about the red and green colored notes. "That means the thief just went by us," Kai called out excitedly. "The thief went right next to us and we didn't even notice." "Not necessarily so," I told him and dimmed his excitement a little. "It doesn't have to be the thief. It's a good conclusion, but it's not quite sound. Maybe the thief bought himself a good Christmas roast and used this note to pay the local butcher, and that butcher went to church this evening and decided to donate €50. "Well, of course," admitted Kai impatiently, obviously preferring his own theory. "But it's significantly more likely that the thief left the note himself." "Doesn't either of you remember the person that threw the note into the basket?" Louise asked, desperation clear in her voice. Me and Kai shook our heads. All I remember is that the last visitor that walked out of the church slipped on the ice and decided to keep walking in the snow. Kai looked enlightened and walked over to the spot our presumed thief had entered the snow. The prints stood out clear as day against the smooth surface of the snow. No one else had bothered to walk anywhere but on the intended path. "It's them!" he exclaimed. "What is who?" uttered Louise and I, visibly confused. Kai pointed at the snow. "Those are the same shoe prints we found in front of your dad's office window. It's the same pattern. The thief went right by us, and we didn't even notice." "Oh shit," cursed Louise. "But why?" I thought out loud for myself. The thief steals something and then donates it to Bread for the World. The basket I was holding was indeed labeled with "Bread for the World." "Maybe he felt the theft weighing on his conscience and tried to make up for it," said Louise. Unfortunately, our pondering was interrupted by my dad calling out through the entire church, "Where are you? If we aren't done here by midnight, you won't get any presents at home." We actually managed to count everything by 8 p.m., and the results were more than satisfying. €670 for Bread for the World and €1,267 for the own community. Luckily, my dad didn't notice the colored note. Instead, he noted, seemingly impressed by his own foresight, "I'm going to hide the money at a safe place for tonight. Least you try and use it as bait for our thief once more." He laughed and gave us a stupid wink. Luckily, we already had different plans for tonight. The distribution of presents in front of the Christmas tree, maybe half an hour later, was a joyous affair. It came to show that Louise and Kai's relatives had already contacted my father and sent him their parcels via express mail, so that they had actually arrived on time for Christmas Eve. None of us got all the things we'd wished for this Christmas, but it was nice. Little clothing, little gross-tasting candy. Instead, lots of interesting books and cool toys. I received a textbook, for children obviously, about biology, and one about archaeology. Me and Bubblegum got a racetrack, as well as a couple new movies and audiobooks. We even found a Christmas card from our mom, who told us that we would receive our presents from her as soon as we were back home. As soon as everyone had unpacked and inspected their presents, we had another simple dinner, small schnitzels, cucumber salad, and French fries, after which it was already time to go to bed. And I was already looking forward to spending an entire night sleeping soundly in our bunk bed when Kai reminded us, "I'm going to set my alarm to midnight again." I'd almost forgotten that we had planned to pay a visit to our neighbors tonight. Oh well. Being a detective was exhausting. I wondered if the actual thieves were better off, since they could sleep during the day and become active at night, as opposed to us poor children had to also like to completely normal life and complete all sorts of tasks for my weird dad. It really was exhausting. Chapter 17, in which we leave the house at night for the first, but definitely not for the last time. I fell asleep quickly, but the beeping of Kai's phone forced me to wake up even quicker as he cruelly held it right next to my ear. I put on my outside clothes, tired and dizzy with leftover sleep, and followed Kai and Louise down the staircase. I couldn't believe that it had just been last night that we had sneaked down the same way to have a sleepover on the cold hallway floor. I would have much preferred it had the thief postponed his burglary until next summer. Then, sneaking out of the house in the middle of the night could have actually been fun instead of freezing. Down in the hallway, we started searching for a light switch for the basement, and I suddenly had a very alarming but also very plausible thought. Could it have been that my dad had just invented the story of the burglar at home to make our holidays a little bit more exciting? Now that I was thinking about it, I couldn't put it past him.